One of the most captivating aspects of human nature is our tendency to chase after what we believe will bring us the most personal gain. We often think that intellectual brilliance, material success, or even self-centered ambition will provide us with the meaning we so desperately seek. After all, who wouldn't want to be the smartest person in the room, the wealthiest, or the one who has all the answers? However, the paradox that has emerged throughout history is this: what truly brings meaning and fulfillment is often the simplest, most profound thing: serving others. This idea may seem counterintuitive, especially in a world where self-promotion and individual success are often held in the highest regard. Yet this profound truth is echoed time and again throughout both scripture and philosophy. For example, in Christian teachings, the notion of being a servant to others is presented not only as virtuous, but as the most meaningful way to live. As we consider the words of the Bible, it becomes evident that being self-serving is often seen as hollow, and it is through serving others that we find our true purpose. People like Jordan Peterson, a contemporary thinker who has gained a significant following for his views on life, self-improvement, and meaning, often touch on these ideas.
And then, if there is a purpose, well, how is it expressed? And then, if there is a purpose and our lives are truncated, as they are, by death, then how can that purpose have significance? And those are hard questions, but Socrates' experience seemed to be that he had lived enough in his life so that when push came to shove, which it certainly did, he was able to gracefully let it go. And he attested to that with his death. And that's fairly convincing, I mean, that's a fairly convincing argument. And it's one that I find, well, it's hard to tell if I find it exactly credible, but I don't find it incredible. I mean, I certainly have noticed that as I've got older and have done things, what would you say? Accomplished isn't exactly the right word. I've participated in many things that I'm pleased to have participated in them, but wouldn't necessarily go back and participate in them again. It's sort of as if when you do something and you finish it, it's as if it's done. You don't have to do it again. And maybe it's possible, who knows, that if you finish your life, whatever that might mean, if you exhaust your life, then that's enough life, that you've had enough. And I mean, that doesn't mean that I try not to keep myself healthy and that I want to die tomorrow. It doesn't mean any of that. I'm trying to stick around as long as I can, but there's still that curiosity about the relationship between life and mortality, and the possibility that a life well lived exhausts itself in some fundamental sense, so that you can be satisfied, let's say, with what you were.
One of his influences, Fyodor Dostoevsky, a towering figure in Russian literature, famously expressed a profound thought that resonates with these themes. According to Dostoevsky, I would rather hold on to Christ rather than to hold on to the truth. While this quote may seem perplexing at first glance, it speaks to a deeper understanding of human existence, that truth, when pursued at the expense of humility and service to others, can lead us astray. For Dostoevsky and many others who follow in the footsteps of Christ's teachings, the humility of servitude was more valuable than being right, being brilliant, or being wealthy. In other words, it is not intellectual intelligence that holds the key to a meaningful life, but the willingness to humble oneself and serve others. The Russian writer recognized that the pursuit of truth, even if that truth is materialism, pride, or selfishness, would never satisfy the soul. The soul's deepest longings could only be quenched through sacrifice and service. The appeal of materialism versus the value of service. In Dostoevsky's time, materialism and intellectualism were seen as the epitome of success, embodied by figures like the writer Vissarion Belinsky. Belinsky was a famous critic who championed the importance of rational thought and material progress. Yet Dostoevsky saw such pursuits as hollow, disconnected from the deeper needs of the human heart. His belief was that focusing on Christ's example of service was the true path to fulfillment. One might laugh at the idea of trading fame, fortune, or intellectual dominance for the quiet, often unnoticed life of a servant. After all, in our world, who has the time to serve others when there are so many ways to succeed, right? But herein lies the irony. The pursuit of self-interest often leads to emptiness. We accumulate wealth, status, and accolades, but they fail to nourish our souls. Meanwhile, those who devote themselves to helping others, those who take up the mantle of service, experience a deeper sense of purpose and joy that transcends any material or intellectual achievement. Jordan Peterson, Modern-Day Servant Leadership. Jordan Peterson, too, draws attention to this principle in his teachings, particularly in his discussion of meaning and responsibility. While Peterson is known for his analysis of psychology and self-help, he often echoes sentiments that align with both Dostoevsky and Christ's teachings. In his discussions on life's meaning, Peterson emphasizes the importance of responsibility, not just responsibility to oneself, but to others. In his view, it is through taking responsibility for the well-being of those around us, whether through relationships, work, or community service, that we find our highest calling. Peterson's influence has stirred conversations about the value of service in a world obsessed with individualism. In many ways, he calls for a return to the idea that we are not isolated beings. We are part of a greater whole, and our individual success is deeply intertwined with the success of those around us. His views on truth and sacrifice resonate with Dostoevsky's sentiment, reminding us that humility, rather than the pursuit of self-interest, is the foundation of a meaningful life. The paradox at the heart of these ideas is that we often have to lose ourselves to find ourselves. We think that by focusing solely on our own advancement, we will find true happiness and fulfillment. Yet when we surrender ourselves to the service of others, when we embrace humility and service to others,